Tell us about your latest art piece and what led you to it.
I'm just back now from having delivered a really big project in London with a group of environmental historians at the University of Liverpool, working on a project called Melting Metropolis. So this is a long-term 5-year research project looking at the phenomenon of urban heat islands in London, Paris, New York, and Port of Spain in Trinidad. And I'm the research artist with the project. I spent some time in New York last year with the environmental historians there and ran workshops in across the boroughs, drawing workshops, but very much kind of led by historical archives and research. But there was a an autoethnography aspect to it where I was really observing my own bodily responses to the extreme heat of the summer in New York, which is so humid. It's a very different. I mean, we're getting hotter here, definitely. We're in a heat wave in Europe, but it was nothing like I'd ever experienced. So I came back to the UK late last year and created a sculpture, um, really largely inspired by New York, but also the other research that's taking place in the other three cities, which was is currently on exhibition in Orleans House Gallery in Twickenham in South London until the 31st of August. And the sculpture is called My Body is a Sundial. And it was my first kind of offering of some of the noticings that came to me whilst I was there in that extreme heat of my of how my body is buckling under this heat, and those moments of actually not being sure whether I can trust my body to withstand this heat. It was quite a shocking experience for me to feel that frailty. The sculpture is kind of, in an abstract way, representing some of those physical responses to that heat, but also the emotional responses and this sense of anger, rage, powerlessness, sorrow, how far we've strayed from our relationship to the sun. Memories, it captures memories as well of summers in the past. So that kind of innocence of my childhood in the 80s when, you know, being outside was a place of safety and joy in the summer. The sun was something to look forward to, not to hide from in air conditioned buildings.
What or who inspired the idea of the body as a sundial?
I worked the with sundial experts, and they really inspired me to think about the body as a sundial because, you know, with a lot of exercises that they do with schools is to kind of show children how their shadow can help them tell the time. And one of the sundial experts started to talk to me about how, yes, sundials can record solar time, but they can also, this new innovations showing how to use sundials to record solar intensity. So My Body is a Sundial is a painted sculpture that allows the sunlight to come through and cast shadows and colors, and that changes throughout the day, and visitors move through it and their reflections alter the paintings. So it does kind of capture the change of time, but it is also a record of solar intensity. And it was really me kind of starting to think about the body as a record or as an archive of all of these different experiences.
Tell us about the Stand of the Sun event.
I invited a group of creatives working in different disciplines to help me expand upon those stories and those questions through a performance that we delivered around solstice called Stand of the Sun. And this was a kind of conversation between the sculpture, which is very much about one person's bodily experience in relationship to the sun. And Stand of the Sun was an imaginary kind of conversation with the sun, thinking about the urban heat island, the experience of our cities from the perspective of our closest star. So in Stand of the Sun, you hear from the hot heart of our solar system as it moves through space into our world, travels through our cities, meets our bodies, moves through our bodies, and reflects on the changes in the geometries, the materials, the responses, the relationship. I guess what I was trying to do was kind of stretch and exercise our empathy muscle. Like, can we have empathy for an entity that's so different to us? Can we possibly enter into imagination exercise where we consider ourselves from a very different perspective, and witness what we're doing to ourselves and one another from this greater distance and this deeper time perspective, with compassion, but like searing honesty as well. So it was a performance with dancers and musicians around and within the sculpture. And it was a call and response, really.
What were some of the main takeaways from the event?
It was really special for me that the researchers, as part of Melting Metropolis, there's 14 of them, they each reflected back to me that it illuminated their own practice in new ways and kind of deepened their understanding of it and gave it this kind of macro view, and that it was deeply moving to see it portrayed in such a multidisciplinary way, and in a what was, we did call it a ritual. It was quite a sacred experience. So it did take them out of their comfort zone, but I think they found that experience really rich, which is great. And for me personally, I mean, it was spine tingling to see, to kind of carry this idea and this story into a creative space where I knew that the artists all was super experienced and had great integrity and really believed in the research and the purpose of the project. So they carried it in ways that I could never have done, with real grace and beauty and intention. And so I am absolutely like wanting to continue this kind of practice, working in the studio on my own research and development, but then having these opportunities to take it into spaces to work in an interdisciplinary way, for live experiences that are outside and that are free and accessible to the public, grounded in research, but where can we take it?
What action do you think needs to be taken to address our current relationship with the sun?
The ways in which we are building our cities and designing our neighborhoods, the materials that we're using. And this is, a lot of this is like governmental kind of responsibilities, but there is some things that we can still do as individuals. But it's holding the sun's heat too close, and we have not evolved to withstand that. So really paying attention to the geometries of our cities and the materials that we're using, and the shade, the access to shade and cooling water and breeze, being able to move through these cities. Like, how can we start to open them? What decisions can we make as communities or as voters to demand this natural release that should be happening every night, right? Like, the cities are just holding it. The other aspects, like really kind of recognizing those qualities of human nature that have led us to this sense of, or this lack of humility in place of our closest star, and this sense that humanity can control nature. So questioning that. So I'm really interested in like Jungian theory about shadow work. So that kind of came in. But I think the other kind of key message was community. Like from the solar perspective, the piece kind of ends with, you know, the Earth is turning on its axis, and it's a witness to all of the incredible number of activists and activist communities that exist, that are working together. And it's, you know, the systems that we are living at the moment are doing their best to tell us that we are alone, that we are in the minority. And, you know, I think there's a lot of interesting research in Melting Metropolis about actually the real sheer number and strength and power of the grassroots work that's taking place in these cities. And so it's really about connecting and finding community and sharing your experiences.
Bryony, thank you so much for using your talent to make nature research more accessible for all and inspiring us to be more playful and colorful. To learn more about Bryony's work, visit the link down below. Thanks for tuning in to Rewild Yourselves in Conversation series. To learn more about the inspiring Rewild Yourself champions and for more ways to find your wild, visit rewildyourself.com or join the conversation on Instagram at rewildyourself.